iedereen. Ik zit met Ruth Tomandl, producer van Snowblind Studios. We zitten bij Lord of the Rings, War in the North. Een paar vraagjes stellen. So, Ruth, tell us something about the story of the game. How is it situated between the books, the film?
It's a new story that takes place during the books and the films. It's based kind of loosely on a couple of things that were mentioned in the books. For example, Gandalf in Return of the King mentions that there were other battles going on, specifically the big battle at Erebor, that even if the ring had been destroyed, if those battles had been lost, the war might have been lost. We know there were a lot of other battles going on, like the Siege of Lothlorien, the Scouring of the Shire. So we kind of wanted to show that, you know, everyone in Middle-earth was fighting this war, not just the Fellowship, that it was, you know, encompassed the entire world, and that everyone was important.
And what's the difference between this game and all of the other Lord of the Rings games?
Well, what's been nice for us is that we get to draw on both the books and the films. So we can take, you know, a lot of the great aesthetic things that were from the films, you know, like the great style that they did for the dwarves and the elves, you know, the way the characters looked, but we can also draw on all of the lore in the books. You know, there's so many things that are just barely mentioned, all of the places on the map that you've never gotten to go to before. So we really get to put those two things together and kind of get the best of both worlds. So I think we're one of the first games that's really been able to do that, and it's, you know, it's been great for us.
So you don't have to watch the movies or read a lot of the books, but you have everything to cover. Can you tell us something about the co-op? Because it's a 3-player co-op. It's very focused on that co-op experience.
Yeah, so you know, Snowblind's previous games like Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance were, you know, co-op focused. You had to work together and support each other, and you know, that's really fun. It's fun to play on the couch with your friends, and we wanted, you know, to kind of bring in that feeling of, you know, working together and fellowship that comes across really well in the movies. I mean, you know, those characters really have to work together. And so we wanted the players to feel like they had to work together as well. So, you know, the game is fairly difficult. A lot of the characters' abilities are really built to work together and support each other. And, you know, we really want you to feel like you're in a fellowship.
Yeah, and we already saw it. It's very difficult, so we have to really depend on the other ones to survive. Can you tell us something about the combat system around the game?
Mm-hmm. So the combat generally is more melee focused. All three of the characters are very good at melee combat, but in different ways. So the dwarf is more of a tank. He can wade right into the middle of enemies and, you know, take a lot of damage. And the elf tends to be a little more of a ranged and area of effect character, so she can push enemies away from herself. She can do crowd control. And the ranger tends to do a lot of damage. He can dual wield. He can also go invisible and sneak around behind enemies and do a lot of damage behind them. So while each of the three characters is very strong in melee, because that's, you know, kind of the funnest part of the game, the range is all right, but melee is really where it is very satisfying. So we wanted each of the three characters to have their own kind of melee style.
Do you have to focus yourself on that combat? So when you're playing the dwarf, you have most of the time dual wielding weapons. You have to really focus on that weapons, or is it depending on what you have of weapons, or can you switch?
Well, each of the three characters can use sort of two different weapon systems. So the dwarf can either use a one-handed weapon and a shield, or a big two-handed weapon. And he gets different active abilities based on which of those two he's using. The ranger, the same way. He can either use a two-handed sword or dual-wield weapons. The elf can either use just a staff, or she can use a staff and one-handed weapon. And again, under each of those, they'll have different active abilities that they can use. So that's one way that you can customize what you do. The other is just which active abilities you use and which ones you unlock and pump up. So
there's gonna be a loot system. Can you tell something about that?
Yeah, so we have thousands of loot items. If you played other Snowblind action RPGs, you know that loot is one of our main focuses. It makes exploration a lot more satisfying, and even killing monsters more satisfying to know that you're going to get something from it. And so the loot is randomized, except for quest rewards are unique. And if you open a chest or kill an enemy, different loot will be dropped for each of the three characters. So if we're playing together, I don't have to worry about stealing your loot. But at the same time, if I find a staff and you're playing as the elf and I can't use it, I can give it to you, and you can use it. So we can trade items. If you're playing single player so that the characters are controlled by AI, you can give the AI characters items and they'll use them.
There's going to be a lot of customization in character, the RPG element of the game, how does this focus?
Well, so the main way that you customize your character is which loot you have equipped. So, depending on which armor and weapon pieces you find, if you want to do a lot of damage and fire damage or, whatever. So loot is the main way. The second way is through the skill tree and your stats. So the skill tree, each character's skill tree is different, and they each have 3 different branches. So depending on which branch you decide to focus on, your character will play fairly differently during combat. You can also customize their appearance. So in towns, there are mirrors, and if you find the mirror, you can change your hair and face and eye color. And there are quite a number of options there. So those are the main ways.
Back to the story, are we gonna encounter a lot of people like Aragorn, Gandalf? Are we gonna go be with them, or are they gonna go give us some missions?
So yeah, you start the game speaking with Aragorn, and he's the one who sends you on your first quest. After that, you will be in Rivendell at the same time the Fellowship is there, right after the Council of Elrond, right before they set out for Mordor. So you'll encounter characters from the films there. A couple of times during the game, you'll get allies that will fight with you. So for example, in Fornost, Elrond's twin sons, Elladan and Elrohir, who again were in the books but not in the films, will join with you and fight with you along through Fornost, and you'll assist each other.
I think the game is going to be released first week of November. So iedereen, we kunnen zwaar co-op spelen, 3 players, co-op, RPG-elementen, sowieso actie in de boeken. Verhaal zit in de boeken, in de films, dus zeker voor de Lord of the Rings fans is het zeker wel de moeite waard.